Hello, this is week 11 of the 13-week fiscal program for American Descendants of Slavery. My name is Chief Biko. Today we have Chief Alligator, Chief Quietwater, and Chief Blackcoat. Um, Here we focus more so on the first letter of the acronym ADOS, which is American, and with emphasis, pretty much we do this for the audience to make sure that we are reclaiming our nationality. I know a lot of us can get confused in reaching for other parts of Earth, in particular Africa, as far as claiming our homeland. But when you do that, you're still not claiming a nationality that is a continent. So what part in Africa are you claiming? Here we want to focus more so on the American aspect since we are native to this land. And this is what we pretty much just focus on during the show. To first get us started, who will we be having read off the 12 steps?
I'm doing the steps. Chief Alligator here. American Descendants of Slavery, 13-week practical program of action for each American descendant of slavery. Step 1, learn about the estate or estates your family originated from. Step 2, who established that estate. Step 3, what nation and confederacy had jurisdiction over that area prior to the European. Step 4, ask all nonprofit organizations you attend, what's your position on reparations? Step 5, they either support it or they don't. No support, no money. However, if they support weekly classes free of charge about steps 1, 2, and 3, and field trips to ADOS landmarks in that city, county, and state. Step 6, don't support European holidays for the remainder of the 13-week time frame. Step 7, avoid spending money with any small business that doesn't hire your people, gas stations, nail salons, subways, etc. Step 8, all businesses need all other groups rely on our energy and operating cash to survive. Set the trends of making other groups follow our lead and support our clubs, services, products, and entertainment. Step 10, the US government is bankrupt. The Federal Reserve prints money, i.e. quantitative easing. It also burns money, i.e. quantitative tightening. The US dollar hasn't been backed by gold since Richard Nixon in 1971, the Gold Standard Act. The government operates off the full faith of its citizens to pay debt and taxes. American descendants of slavery no longer have faith in the US government. This is why financial support will be altered, stopped, and redirected.
I think we lost you a little bit.
Okay.
You good now?
Okay. Subsection A, have them learn about an American inventor. Subsection B, have them know about our heroes. Subsection C, they should know the European that conquered the estate you live in. Subsection D, they should know the nation of people prior to European invasion, militarily and culturally. And step 12, practicing these steps will educate us on the land we're claiming, America, and attaches us to the history and laws of the US government. Every estate American descendants of slavery live in should have steps 1, 2, and 3 advertised via social media, radio, and newspaper. This in 13 weeks, one fiscal quarter will bring us together for our common cause.
Thank you, Chief Alligator. I'll go ahead and start with the inventor for this week. This week's inventor, we have Phillip B. Downing. Phillip B. Downing is the inventor of the letterbox. So pretty much whenever you're going to your USPS, Postal Service, UPS, Postal Service, FedEx, pretty much those boxes that you see cars can just pull up and drop off their mail. He was the inventor of that. Phillip was born in Providence, Rhode Island. He has pretty much 3 patents in which he is known for. One including, of course, the letterbox, and then another in regards to like a railroad track, being able to switch that. He was born March 23rd, 1857, passed away June 8th, 1934. US patent number for the letterbox is 462093. Again, that is 462093. And that was granted on October 17th, 1891. So next month on the 17th, that will be the day the actual patent was granted. And just another side note, his mother, Serena L Degrasse, had family roots in New York City, New York, during dating back to the mid 1600s. And pretty much I just shared that just to show that we are native to this land pretty much. We know the first quote unquote European to actually land on this continent, they always say Columbus, and that was what, 1692 or something around that area. So if this is mid 1600s, that's just further proof and further evidence that we are indigenous to this land. And just to go back even further, New York City, New York, we know the history, or some of us may be familiar with the history of Central Park and how pretty much we were living in that area, and then was pretty much removed, just like we'll see, or pretty much how we saw here in this American Removal Act from that area. And just a little side note on the tidbit there, and that was Phillip B. Downing.
And what was that patent date again?
The patent date was what is that? October 17th, 1891.
Okay, got you.
That's a good find, because I always wondered who invented that.
Yeah, man.
Just pull up and drop your mail off. Yeah.
Exactly. Everyday things that we use and
Everyday things, man.
Yeah.
Question, if you could just reiterate, so what did he invent with the post office?
the letterbox. So pretty much what you drop off your letters, it was pretty much invented to make sure the elements didn't destroy whatever people was writing at that time. And that later became the mailbox. All right. Let's see. Who do we have reading the quote this week?
I got the quote from Dr. Carter G. Wilson.
All right.
So I'm going with quote number 4 tonight. If the Negro could abandon the ideal of leadership and instead stimulate a larger number of the race to take up definite tasks and sacrifice their time and energy in doing these things efficiently, the race might accomplish something. The race needs workers, not leaders. Such workers will solve the problems which leaders talk about and raise money to enable them to talk more and more about.
Excellent quote. Excellent quote.
Right.
All right. I will get to the legal definitions and the maroon historical points. So the legal definitions: number 1, American, a native of America. Number 2, descendants, one who follows in the bloodline of an ancestor, either lineally or collaterally. Number 3, slavery, a situation in which one person has absolute power over the life, fortune, and liberty of another. Number 4, prisoner of war, a person, usually a soldier, who is captured by or surrenders to the enemy in wartime. Number 5, school, an institution at which instruction is given in a particular discipline. Number 6, education, an enlightening experience. And then the maroon historical points: number 1, was a person escaping slavery, seeking freedom, or breaking the law. Number 2, providing unity and a strong defense came first. Number 3, maroon leaders were first and foremost military figures. Number 4, maroons established guerrilla warfare, planting sharp sticks in thick grass. Number 5, maroons knew their European enemies' language, defenses, and plans.
Thank you, Chief Quietwater.
You're welcome.
All right, before we jump into the Treaty of Paynes Landing, I definitely just wanted to go over pretty much the U.S. Constitution. Just 2 things. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. So the first thing we pretty much wanted to go over today in the Constitution was Article 1, subsection 10. And that is, no state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, making anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. Pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts or grants or grant any title of nobility. Pretty much what we wanted to read off that for is we know that the dollar hasn't been backed by gold since 1971, since the Nixon Act. So with that being said, we see on our money, this paper, this fiat is payable for debts, but that goes pretty much right against the Constitution here in Section 10, because we know here from the Constitution, anything but gold and silver coin, a tender in payment of debts. So pretty much what we're saying is that if it's not backed by anything, then what are we paying taxes for? What are we pretty much keeping this system afloat for if there's no actual resource or natural resource behind it? Did anybody want to build off of that? Let me go back.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's only supported and have value because of the faith, as we state in the 12 steps, the faith of the people, basically. So we have to get on the same page and realize that there is no value, and just
Correct.
understand that basic concept.
I agree. I think last week we kind of spoke on it as well about this 3D monopoly we continue to play, but yeah, we're pretty much shooting ourselves in the foot by continuing to believe and trust in this government.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, something, Chief Alligator? I think he might be muted.
Yeah, I was muted, my bad. Yeah, why continue to be in last place under a government when there is no money? That's what we have to ask ourselves as prisoners of war. Why continue to play along with this whole make-believe idea that we're Negro, we're Black, we're colored, we're Afro-American, we're people of color, we're minority, we're underprivileged, and there is no money. So this is mental for us. That's what I think. It's all mental with us. There is no money. This whole thing, my whole life, I've never earned money working. I'm born in the 70s. So so they took the money out of the system before I was born. But that's because Blacks were not a part of, prisoners of war were not citizens of the government until 1964, 1965. That's when you were given the right to vote. Public office and everything. So we really have to understand they never budgeted for us to be citizens. So as soon as the civil rights movement was over with, they took the money out of the system because they couldn't afford us to be citizens.
Right.
Great point. Great point. Great point. Just to kind of, I guess, bring it back to current times, we know this government pretty much created trillions of dollars for the stimulus this past year, letting off 3 stimulus checks, trillions of dollars. So as Chief Alligator was saying, there is no money, so you can print as many bills as you want to quote unquote pay for whatever you need to get done. We was talking earlier how we see on commercials, donate for the Hurricane Relief Fund or Hurricane Ida Relief Fund. So you're telling me the government's able to print trillions of dollars for the stimulus, for 3 stimulus checks, but can't produce any type of quote unquote money to help out the people in Louisiana, which we know most of the demographics in that area would be our people.
Right.
So just things to pretty much think about. And like Chief Alligator said, get us out of this mindset that we're currently in. Another thing we wanted to go over prior to jumping in the Treaty of Paynes Landing was section, what was it? Section 6 here, I believe, yes. Okay, so we go over these treaties for one main purpose, pretty much because the treaties are the supreme law of the land. So regardless of anything that comes underneath it, whether it's statutes, order says anything on your local level, your state level, treaties are the supreme law of the land. And we're not saying this just to say it. This is actually stuff that we can reference back to the Constitution, just as we did for the gold and silver. Here in Article 6, it states here, this Constitution and law of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby anything in the constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. There's a go right there. We're not making this up. We're bringing this straight from the resources that we have, straight from the resources that this government has created, in which we are prisoners of war. And it clearly states here, treaties are the supreme law of the land. I know last week and the week prior to that, when reading the Removal Act, again, an act, not a treaty, we were seeing how they would say, they would use terms like, this is all withstanding, but also the treaties that we've made prior to this are still in effect. So just that in itself is a contradiction. How can you say we're going to be located in this area, for example, the Seminoles, but then again make an act where we have to move from this concentration of area that we made a treaty with, but have to now move over into what's now called the state of Oklahoma territory, Indian territory. So you can see just how they contradict themselves within their own writings. So it's like, well, if they're contradicting themselves in their own writings, why are we even believing in this system?
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Let's say, anybody want to build off of that, or?
It's pretty straightforward.
Now we're bringing it live and direct, just trying to clear the air.
Definitely.
I'll just add in, asking the question, why are none of our people going to the supreme law of the land? You can't tell the story of America without reading the supreme law of the land. This is foreign to our people reading treaties. Yeah, you can write a great book, but why does everybody avoid the supreme law of the land? You want to know what happened in America, you got to read the treaties. That's what I would, just something to make people think. Why are your scholars, why does nobody never talk about treaties?
Right. Again, if you want to know the history in the land, you gotta go to the treaties. You gotta go to the treaties. It's telling you. And that's a great point that you pointed out about how are we learning history if we're not reading treaties.
Correct.
Exactly.
Especially if, like we see here, it's supposed to be the supreme law of the land. So those are supposed to be the most important things you would think that need to be taught.
Exactly. First and foremost.
Right. Correct. We hear wars and acts and movements, but nothing that's supposed to be stated again, supreme law of the land, that we can actually reference on. Go ahead and stop sharing here. All right, we're going to jump into the Treaty of Paynes Landing. Get it pulled up here for everyone. All right, can everybody view it? I'm gonna try to blow this up a little bit more. Is that good, or should I go a little bit more?
You can.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
That's good. I got it on down.
Okay, perfect. Let me try to slide this over. All right, I'll go ahead and I guess get us started here. Okay, treaty with the Seminoles, 1832. All right, let's begin. The Seminole Indian, the Seminole Americans, regarding with just respect to, let me move this a little down here. The Seminole Americans, regarding with just respect the solicitude manifested by the President of the United States for the improvement of their condition by recommending a removal to a country more suitable to their habits and wants than the one they at present occupy in the territory of Florida, are willing that their confidential chiefs, jumpers, Fukalusti Hajo, Charlie Amartla Kohajo, Holati, Amartla, Yahajo, Sam Jones, accompanied by their agent, Major Fagan, and their faithful interpreter, Abraham, should be sent at the expense of the United States as early as convenient to examine the country assigned to the creeks west of the Mississippi River. I'll go ahead and stop right there. Pretty much what I got from this is, again, just contradictions. Just another contradiction from itself or from this actual government. Seems here they are now saying that, or claiming to say that this new territory of land that they're going to give the Seminole Americans in particular is more suitable for their living. Now, this is pretty much after they have already agreed to the Treaty of Moultrie Creek, in which they pretty much have now become familiar with the area, familiar how to trade, was pretty much still able to make trade since it was close to the ocean with other nations and so forth. But it seems here now they are saying this is more suitable for them, but how would they know what is more suitable for them? It also seems here that they are pretty much saying that this has been backed by the chiefs in which have signed the Treaty of Moultrie Creek, as well as the interpreter, that they are all pretty much in agreement with this removal to this new country. Anybody thoughts on that first little section there?
Yeah, I'll help you build on that. If you could highlight where we at, where it mentions where it says should be sent at the expense of the United States as early as convenient to examine the country assigned to the creeks west of the Mississippi River. So first, I would ask everybody to step back and look at the timeline. 1830 was the American Removal Act. 2 years later, here's another peace treaty. So we have to remember, everybody that didn't go to Oklahoma, they're still at war with the Europeans. Y'all with me?
Yeah.
There were still wars going on. For those who didn't go on the Trail of Tears, there's still war. So now they've got another band of people out of the nation of Seminole, and they're saying, hey, we want to get you out of this area. We got a problem with y'all, right? But you can also see two nations are being merged together. They're going to merge the Seminole with the Creeks.
Correct.
And
Great point.
The last thing I'll say is Major Fagan, which is the sentence before that you have highlighted. So look who the agent is for the American nation. They got a European warlord as the agent.
Wow. So of course it's going to be in favor of what they want.
Correct. Right. Great point. Great point. I guess just to now, since my gears are kind of turning in what you said now, we know this is after the Removal Act. And like you stated, this is still during wartime. So as I guess military mind, you would want to make sure that those who aren't upholding that treaty from the Moultrie Creek are removed so you can actually do battle with the people that are kind of, I guess, causing these disturbances or these continuing the Seminole War. Just, I guess, from their perspective, trying to see, okay, we're going to move them so we can make sure that those that aren't abiding to the system, those that aren't just bending over, we can actually just raise hell against them without hurting anybody that we possibly even made a treaty with, which would be these chiefs that they went ahead and named. So thoughts on that one?
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
From a military standpoint, Chief Blackcoat, what do you get from this at this point? That they got a major as the agent.
Right. That's what stood out at me. So now, so when we initially read that kind of stood out at me. So you have a major pretty much as the agent for this group of people. So I'm seeing it like he's pretty much in control of the conversations, and the people are probably requesting one thing, the major is dictating what they get, how they get it. He's pretty much playing that I guess I can call it two-face. So that's how I'm looking at it in this situation, because our ancestors are looking at it, oh, you're supposed to be the translator, the agent, pretty much, in my opinion. And then of course he's going back to his people, the European military, and it's probably just total opposite of that information coming in and out.
Good point.
That's how I'm looking at it.
And I think one more thing I would just add in there, we have to remember they were scared to occupy the Creed Confederacy. From Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, we're thinking that that's the dirty South, but we got to go back to the 1800s. Our ancestors were killing them on sight. That's why they were trying to get us out of our homeland. We have to understand that. We were killing them on sight.
Right.
Correct.
This idea that we were running and, you know, they were just hanging us. This is before the hangings in the 1900s.
Right.
This is when our ancestors were washing them.
Mhm.
I just wanted to throw that in.
Great point. Great point. Let me see. I'll go ahead and continue. And should they be satisfied with the character of that country and of the favorable disposition of the Creeks to reunite with the Seminoles as one people, the articles of the compact and agreement herein stipulated at Paynes Landing on the Ocklawaha River, this 9th day of May, 1832, between James Gadsden and Gadsden for and in behalf of the government of the United States. So right here, pretty much what I got is that they're pretty much joining them or telling them within this treaty that they're going to be joined with the Creeks in this new territory that they're telling them that they're going to be having. So now they are getting another, pretty much the short end of the stick again. So not only were they cut off from pretty much a lot of the trade within Florida, they were still able to do something, but at least they had their own nation. They didn't have to pretty much mingle with anybody that they didn't want to. But it looks here within this treaty that they have no choice but to unite with the Creeks, or that they'll be pretty much joined with the Creeks without even them having any say so. And also it looks like they're going to be sending out some people to survey the land as well prior to the removal, but again, just not having any say so. Just again, kind of taking that nationalism, taking that strength or that actual individuality from them. You can kind of see how they're starting to do that in this moment here.
Right.
So I'm looking at the Creek Nation selling out first, right? So the Creeks had to go into contract with the United States military first. Now the Creeks probably thought that they were going to get their own land in Oklahoma, Indian Territory, right? And they were going to start from scratch. They probably don't know that they're about to send Seminole into that area, and then the Seminole don't know that they're about to go
running into the creek, right?
And so this ties into where we are today. You're bringing prisoners of war from Afghanistan, and you're dumping them into quote unquote black or of war neighborhoods. And even though prisoners of war didn't get anything specifically from the Biden and Kamala administration as of today, keyword specific, haven't got anything specific. These prisoners of war from Afghanistan are getting specific benefits. They're living in Airbnbs and getting rent paid and all kind of, they're not even citizens. Keep that in mind.
It's the same thing. I mean, it mirrors exactly what we just read. Like literally, it mirrors everything that what we just read. And because we are ignorant to this information, you know, we don't see it coming. Basically, present day, we don't see it coming. Just like back then, they didn't really understand fully what was going on. Like you said, neither the Seminoles nor the Creeks knew that they were about to be together. Basically,
right.
It's the same thing here. Is we didn't get anything, from this administration up to this point. We're seeing them give everyone else everything that they need, and we're
The
not saying
agents.
anything about it. We're not doing anything about it. We're not speaking up. We're not
Your
fighting
Black
against it.
Caucus playing the
Exactly.
agent.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yes, the Black Caucus, right.
Mhm.
Exactly. They're two-faced, just like you said earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
Great points. Great points. I would even go on to say you can see how we can kind of put things into a parallel perspective. You have the Biden administration claiming that they want to extend the moratorium for evictions, but not really putting any action, just wordplay. But they really want to get these people out, and you see who they're bringing in: Afghanistan refugees. You see here in the removal act, it's the same thing. We're going to remove them, but we're going to substitute them with people that we know we can possibly deal with. We've dealt with them before. We've been in battle. These people are already agreeing to this stuff, so we know we can control them. But people that were prior here, hell, we don't do business with y'all pretty much. And you can kind of see how that parallels today with the eviction moratorium about to end, and the people, pretty much the people that they're going to be bringing into those homes, those apartments, these places, they already have them set up.
Yeah.
So just removing one thing and putting them in another.
Yep. It's just crazy how you're gonna bring in. I'm not calling them terrorists, but your government or this government recognizes them as terrorists for over 20 years, and all of a sudden we want to bring them into the homeland. How are these security checks looking, and this background? How is that?
COVID.
What type of process?
Exactly.
The next what code? So how is this? How is this real? And it just goes back to our group not getting anything in that first 100 days. Now that we're waking up to the fact that, Biden didn't do anything for this group, let's go ahead and continue to bury this group with a whole other group. So it's just ridiculous on what's going on right now. Absolutely ridiculous. How are we playing hero now? We just bombed it for 20 years. We could have stopped we could have just stopped bombing and then, pretending to be hero. Now you're on act like we're on just bring in how many? 75,000? Insane. Insane. That's an insane number.
It's actually to our benefit if you think about it. The fact that the government is now fake because the money is fake. And so what they're doing right now is the only people that they will not address specifically is us.
Right.
So if we stand on the edge of that coin and just look at their behavior, you're throwing any topic in the news cycle to not deal with the prisoners of war, the real de jure Americans. So actually, all you got to do is start calling them on their lies. Like, nope, we don't give a damn about your prisoners of war you bring it from Afghanistan. What's up with the reparations? You're not American. They're panicking at this point.
Yes, you can see it.
It was Asians 3 months ago.
Right.
You can see the panic.
Now it's Afghanistan. You got the border wide open for. Check this out. They're calling you illegal aliens, but those are really Americans coming from South America into North America.
Correct.
So there's no
Mexico.
no checks for them, right? You got all these Americans running into quote unquote the United States, but they're not getting vaccinated. They're not even getting vetted.
Yeah, exactly.
Come
so
on,
who
y'all.
are you targeting? And because what's the point? Pretty much, what's the point?
Now that y'all relayed that information about the government coming out or the Biden administration coming out about his team or his members or his board doesn't have to get vaccinated, you should see this as just a huge, I don't even want to call it a game. I don't even know what to call it. It's just
bullshit.
Lululand.
Right.
Like, how is the president that just said everybody with a business with 100 or more employees has to get vaccinated? Now that's all right.
Yeah. You're bringing over 75,000 prisoners of war and the floodgates open. Yeah.
Right. Me spending 2 years over there in that land. No offense to those people that have melanin like me and the rest of us on this chat right now. But it is insane for me to believe and wrap my mind around it. They're going to bring in 75,000 Afghans, and put them in Airbnbs. I'm still trying to believe this narrative because, again, you bombed these people for over 20 years. They have no type of good intent towards you. None, man. I'm not making them all out to be bad people. I'm just saying if someone when you get bullied when you're younger, once you get older, you kind of want to go at that bully if you ever cross them again, or you get it straight.
Yeah,
it's the same type of idea. So it's like, what?
And I guess just to even
give them Airbnbs and just, so you want the real Americans to live like third world country type of people at this point, because now you're bringing in a third world country. So now you're gonna really know how to do it.
Put a nail in the coffin on that. Like you said, for 20 years, been at war with this group of people, or close to have been at war with this group of people. Just had the 20th year anniversary of 9/11. So you're willing to do something more impactful for this people that you claim to have been the enemy within 20 years, and address something that has been done for 400 years with the actual Americans. So you'll rather help something that you claim to be your enemy for 20 years rather than face the real problem which is addressing us, prisoner of war, the real Americans, which have been mistreated for over 400 years. It's like benign like that is best.
Right. Go back to Chief Alligator. Favorite term or favorite quote. It's not racism. It's a military operation. And now we can see it because now they're just moving pieces around. They have the aircraft to move pieces around, meaning move bodies. And you're seeing it. Like Chief Quiet would have just said, we're watching this story play itself out all over again. Yeah. Let's bring in Afghan refugees. We're going to kick out a lot of Americans with this eviction and band them together, fight and whoever wins, whoever survives in this land of chaos, good luck. But it's ridiculous.
Let me throw one thing in on that 9/11, because I was in my 20s. What two buildings collapsed? I'm asking.
World Trade Center.
The world. Let's say that small. The World Trade Center. So every time trades were made, those documents were held in those buildings.
Went through there.
They blew up the records. And then the world lost trust in the United States government. Who did they bring in to make their face look good in 2008? Obama. So I just wanted to add that in because being an adult when that happened, they never talk about that, but we're grounded and we're critical thinkers on this channel. They destroyed world records of trade. That's what they did. And then they turned around and blamed Saddam Hussein for weapons of mass destruction they never found.
Exactly.
Right? Occupied the land, like you said, Chief Black Coat, they occupied the land for 20 years. That's 2 generations of people that have resentment against the United States government. Right. And then you look at our 400 years of resentment, I think we can really take a page and learn from the Afghanistan people about how to stand up, because they 20 years in with the United States government and they're going door to door getting all the sellouts. We got a lot of sellouts amongst our group and we have yet
done that. Correct. Great point. Great point. Great point. A lot to learn from. Just sit back and observe.
As Chief Alligator said something that stood out pretty much. It only took them 20 years to get that right and understand what to do. America is the land free and the land of this and melting pot. So as we grew from the 1832s, they created this just big Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Just this big, just do whatever you want to do. The Chanel, the Gucci from that, the BMW, consumer land. We always talk about that, the land of consumers. This is what it is. So we were able to grow and just be more and more confused with our big TVs and things of nature. But that's the difference between our group and then the Afghans, who just had absolutely nothing. So it was only go home and plan on how to defeat the enemy. Right. Versus should I buy a BMW, pay my rent, like still like, you feel me?
Great point. Great point. Let me see. I'll go ahead and continue here. And the undersigned chiefs and head men for and in behalf of the Seminole Americans shall be binding on the respective parties. Article 1, the Seminole Americans relinquish to the United States all claim to the lands they at present occupy in the territory of Florida and agree to immigrate to the country assigned to the creeks west of the Mississippi River. It being understood that an additional extent of territory proportion to their numbers will be added to the Creek country, and that the Seminoles will be received as a constituent part of the Creek Nation and be readmitted to all the privileges as members of the same. So just here in this article, one, we again see that they're pretty much having them two nations join into one. Looks like again the Creeks were the ones to have, or some of the Creek chiefs. Not going to put it on all of them. Some of the Creek chiefs were ones to have sell out first, since the Seminoles are going to their assigned country west of the Mississippi River, and also that they'll be given proportionate, I guess, amount of land for however many Seminoles are going to be making that journey to this creek assigned area of the land. Also, what I got here is that there'll be no more Seminoles, pretty much is what they wanted to do, and they'll all be combined underneath the Creek Nation, with members and privileges the same. And they're writing this as if this has already been agreed upon by the Creek Nation, that whoever is brought over into this territory, we're going to give them like a tribal membership of some type of sorts, which we know isn't the case, because on last week's viewing, we saw that, yeah, it was Muskogee, and then they had Seminole Nation as well. So just that in itself shows that they were still, that what they're showing here in this article about them actually being fine with bringing on the Seminole wasn't true, since they have an actual Seminole Nation within Oklahoma, an actual Creek Muskogee Nation. Anybody want to build on that?
Yeah, I'll help you out. This is a very important piece if we go back to the name of this channel, the Creed Confederacy. This confederacy is collapsing. So when we start from the Carolinas, where Chief Biko's bloodline is from, as they lose territory in that Carolina area, they find themselves in what we know now as Georgia, which was Cherokee and Muskogee Nation territory. As they lost land, they started going down into that Florida area, right? So you got all these hundreds of people that were coming from different nations as they were dissolving, and they band together to form a Seminole, right? But the head nation within this confederacy was the Creek. So once the Creek did the deal with the military, the European knows it's collapsing. So at this point, it's kind of like the Titanic is sinking, and it's like, who's gonna get on the lifeboats? A lot of people were willing to get on the lifeboat and take horrible deals, like what we see here. Here's another treaty. Now this group of people, the first treaty we read, they were gonna get roped off, and their ports were taken away in Florida. Now they're going a step further and saying, well, we're gonna dump you back on the Creek Nation if you go to Oklahoma, right? But let's really understand in Article 1 what's happening. These nations are dissolving and the Creek Confederacy is collapsing. So this Seminole Nation was really a band of just a whole bunch of Americans from other nations, basically fighting to just keep whatever they had.
Great point. Great point. Because yeah, like you stated, we know that the Creek Confederacy pretty much had all of the southeastern area of the present day United States. So if they're able to take the Creeks from that, so have them sign a deal, then like you said, they feel they can pretty much get the remaining smaller nations or smaller tribes to go ahead and wipe them out and make sure that they're put back in place within this Oklahoma territory.
So they kind of had to learn how to live together in a place that was kind of foreign to both of them.
Mhm.
They did, getting Tulsa, like Wall Street out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do Article 2.
Article 2. Oh, okay.
Article for and in consideration of the relinquishment of claim in the first article of this agreement, and in full compensation for all the improvements which may have been made on the lands thereby ceded, the United States stipulate to pay to the Seminole Americans $15,400 to be divided among the chief and warriors of the several towns in a ratio proportion to their population. So, yeah, you're dividing $15,000 amongst chiefs and warriors of the towns in Indian, in what they call Indian Territory, which really was what we know now as Oklahoma. So here again, they were self-sufficient American nations. They were doing trade with the world. They had control over ports. They had control over everything that was coming out of the ground in their particular territory. Now you're being shipped west of the Mississippi River into foreign land. And now you're dependent on the military and the United States government to give you rations, financial rations. So it's just a bad deal. You're losing your independence.
Right. It's like they signed up not knowing what the end result was going to be in regards to how the government basically played them.
Well, with that military presence there, kind of didn't really have a choice if we want to look at it in that perspective. They're probably just tired of fighting. They knew going into the deal was probably already a bad deal. Look who I'm dealing with.
You want to hit on that, Chief Biko?
No, I would agree with that. Pretty much, they already probably knew from prior arrangement and prior interactions with the European that they were going to get pretty much the short end of the stick. But as Chief Blackcoat said, they probably already done seen some traumatic stuff that where they was like, you know what, I just need to try to save as many of our people as we can at this point. And as we stated earlier, they did still get to keep their culture, their language, some of their practices, and even a form of government. So I would agree that they probably were just like, you know, we'll take this one on the chin if we get to, you know, keep our identity at least.
Mm.
Moving points that I'm probably, no, not probably, for sure. Because now you look at us, Black people, the culture is gone.
Right.
All the way.
Right. And we can see how the internal fight happens here. Because if you sell out and you go to Oklahoma, right, you have nothing because you've already relocated from the Creed Confederacy. But the illusion that you have something will make you look at your family on the east side of the Mississippi, and you'll start fighting against them to keep what you think you're getting from the government.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it happened right here.
Mm-hmm. Little classism, basically.
Yeah.
Little classism within the nation.
Right.
Like I think some of you got Chief Blackcoat Alligator and Keep Line was saying last week, I believe, how they probably went to this area, and again, years past, the gold rush and things of that nature as they move west. It's like, damn, anything that they did find as far as natural resources, they had to give it up anyway, since this was still U.S. where they was claiming to be a still American territory, but we saw in past treaties that anything you find on the land, you still have to give us percentages and things of that nature. So, like you stated, they're still not, you know, having anything because it could still be taken away like that.
And this is where I feel some sympathy for those that are in Oklahoma, even though they're family and they sold out. We're really understanding, like you just said, Chief Pico, how you thought you were winning, but as the Europeans started discovering different kinds of natural resources west of the Mississippi, all they did was continue to put the gun in your face and say, nah, give us that. Oh, you got oil? Give us that. Oh, you got gold out here? Give us that.
Give us that.
So you really lost.
Like just to, I guess, put a nail on it. Like you said, we were the ones tilling the land since we were familiar with that area prior to being removed to Oklahoma. We were tilling the lands. Who would you enslave to till that land? People that's familiar with it. So of course, like you said, once they become familiar, they're, oh shit, we can grow this, we can do that. There's oil here. Oh no, that's us now. Move a little further west, gold rush. Oh, there's gold here. No, that's us now. So it's kind of like we'll send you guys out here to be the scavengers, the surveyors.
Right.
Once you get settled, then we're gonna take that shit pretty much. And I can say just from driving through Oklahoma, it's nothing there as far as what you can see off of I-40. Once you get past Oklahoma City, it's nothing there. So as you can, I guess, get a picture of how long, our extended family has been in this area. There's no metropolises off of I-40. There's no metropolitan. There's no skyscrapers within this territory that was given to our people. Yet Oklahoma City is booming city. I mean, it looked like damn near Atlanta or any other major city that you would think, like going through Oklahoma City and seeing some of the other cities that we quote unquote major cities that we passed. It's like, oh yeah, Oklahoma City, you can see how that would be lit, but that's not ours. But driving past Oklahoma City, it's like a beacon of like a bright spot. After that, darkness. Darkness. I even passed the Wovoka exit. This is all during that night too, so that even made me realize it even more. Like, damn, I couldn't even stop here to see our shit even if I wanted to, because nothing's lit for us to even see, at least at that time of night. So yeah, I stopped there for gas and that was it. So I'm like, damn, and that just made me think, like, we had all these years of being here. Of course, we know what the government did with Tulsa, but still, it's like nothing that you can see off of these major interstates. You drive through Atlanta, it's a city. You drive through these other ones, it's a booming metropolis. But our territory, nothing. Looks like straight plains. Straight plains.
You dropped the bomb. You dropped the bomb. I want to come back and let everybody build on what you said, because you dropped a lot of bombs. It was Americans that built that land. Where does this slave narrative come from? We're reading the supreme law of the land. Yeah, these weren't slaves. These were from nations that were out there. So y'all want to say something on that? It's like we're exposing this lie.
I mean, it's clear. It's definitely clear. And then just to hear Chief Biko say what he said, it's clear that we were the ones. We would go and, like you said, find the resources, till the land. We were the ones who basically cultivated everything, and then it was just stolen away, taken away by the Europeans.
Yeah, I think Chief Biko said a whole lot and put a whole lot into perspective. That, like, you sold. I hate to say they sold out, but in the way you did, you didn't. Well, whatever, fucked up situation, but you pretty much put the whole thing into perspective of what they still have out there today. Absolutely nothing. So you didn't win at all, and now you're kind of restrained to those reservations. You just ducked off away from the world. No one really knows you. They're trying to make everyone forget about you.
Yeah.
But with everyone waking up, we're understanding, hold on, we're still all here for real America. But yeah, you said a whole lot there. Painting that picture of what they have out there in Oklahoma. Absolutely nothing. Yeah, Oklahoma City, is the only thing they have. And then outside of that, it's just nothing.
Yeah, not much.
Let's see. So I'll pick up the
respective portions.
Okay. The respective proportions of each to be paid on their arrival in the country they consent to move to it being understood that their faithful interpreters, Abraham and Cudjoe, shall receive $200 each of the above sum in full remuneration for the improvements to be abandoned on the lands now cultivated by them. So they get an extra little bonus if they do improvements back in Florida territory, which is the lands that they're abandoning. So here we go right back to what Chief Biko just said. We were cultivating this idea that you brought somebody from a whole nother landmass and they were just gonna jump straight off the boat and just know what was grown on this land.
Right.
It doesn't even make sense.
The story does not even make any kind of logical sense.
Yeah, it's
That's crazy.
yeah. When you put it like that, it's crazy. Like you just drop them into
Right.
a paradise, pretty much.
They have no clue.
Like
Wow.
everything has already been set up for you guys. Everything's good. We got tables set up, fruits. All you need to do is pick the fruits. You good. Everything has already been laid out for the people that they want to bring, the actual immigrants, which would have been the Europeans at this time. So yes,
Yep.
fix it up and move out.
And that's something that I'm gonna do for next week or within the next week. I'm gonna go through archives and put together a little display of while they're moving Americans west, we need to see what the slaves look like coming from Europe. We really need to see this. We need to see them in cages, packed on boats, and we need to understand the transatlantic Slav or slave trade was them. It wasn't us. And it's amazing how nobody, quote unquote, black, they talk about the millions of people that were coming across the Atlantic, but nobody wants to admit that it was Europeans.
Right.
Y'all got anything to say on that? Like, they act like
a lot they gotta own up to. That's gonna be tough.
you kind of muffled, Chief Black Coat. You kind of muffled.
No, I was saying that, you know, it's the biggest law they have to own up to. And that's a tough law to
Right.
pretty much bite down on.
This whole narrative of being slaves coming out of West Africa was really us coming from out of Europe, Spain, France, all those.
You're getting real low. I don't know if it's the phone or the. Can y'all hear him clearly, Chief Biko, Chief Quavo?
He's a little muffled.
Yeah, it sound muffled.
Oh, my bad, guys. My bad. Had my mic covered up. But no, I was saying that's just, you know, one of the biggest lies that they have to own up to, and it's going to be tough. That's a tough one to pretty much explain that narrative of us coming out of West Africa is the law, and you coming on boats from Europe in cages, stacked up, throwing up, peeing all over each other. That story is your story.
And that's the lie that they're fighting so hard to keep
The
under
big
wraps.
one.
Because if we knew that at the whole
It's over with.
level, we know the power, you know, it would show the power that we actually really do have.
I guess prior to us jumping in, I do want to just show something that will probably pretty much just solidify who were the actual slaves, or as Chief Alligator said, the Slavs coming over. Share my screen real quick on this one.
You get ready to do, Chief Biko.
Go ahead and drop a bomb on it real quick, man. You know, I've been out too long, so it's about time we show them what's going on here. So we got here Frank Lisley's illustrated newspaper. So actual newspaper article. Of course, he didn't have cameras, but the illustration, January 12th, 1856. Let me see if I'll be able to zoom in for you all.
Can you share the screen so we can so the world can
shoot. Let me see. Oh, it's not even showing. Hold on. Okay. You can see now?
Right.
Wow.
All right. So we got this here. January 12th, 1856 is what it reads, the date. And as you can see here, immigrants waving farewell to crowd on dock as their ship leaves a Western European port for North America. See how they're packed?
Wow.
Packed to the brim. This actual newspaper article that And from the 1850s, we know this treaty here, 1832, know there's going to be another Seminole War, 1850-ish, around that area. So these are the people that's going to be replacing the actual Americans.
Right.
It's not
Or attempting to.
Americans. Exactly. It's European. So that's just further proof.
So immigrants get to,
Hmm.
well, immigrants, yeah, waving farewell. So
Mhm.
they probably drew that up and made it all a little sweeter than what it really was.
Mhm.
But we'll roll with it.
You know what? Since we're doing this, we got a couple more minutes. We can stop where we are. You want to go to the you want to go to Library of Congress real quick? Let's just see if we
Yep.
can do something right quick.
Let me see. So I think we had one. It was showing me one of the ones earlier. Let me just put it here. This
Them
thing.
boys can't wait to get up out of here.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying.
Right.
You
Right.
saying we can
No,
grow stuff here?
seriously.
No, stuff already
We
grown
can do what we want. We can have our families and live in peace.
just for a note, we stopped on Article 2, so we're going to be starting Article 3, I believe. I think we stopped, yeah. I think we finished Article 2.
Okay.
Just as a
We just got a couple of minutes, but let's just click on it. Let's go into the Library of Congress.
Mhm.
And in the search, yeah, let's put 1830 immigrant peasants.
What the hell is this on Library of Congress?
I say I don't know what they got going.
Let's see
Oh
what
man.
comes up. Okay. All right. Let's see.
Dirty.
Greece with the. Okay, let's go down a little bit more. This is not. Okay, so it's not put. So let's go back to the search bar. Let's put in. Only thing to take off is the peasant. Let's do 1830 immigrants. Let's see what it pulls up. German immigrant arrivals. Okay, so it didn't like the word peasant. All right, so let's click on let's click on that first link. German immigrant arrivals. Let's see what the Library of Congress has to do. Has on that.
German immigrant arrivals, resources compiled and annotated. Okay.
See where it says regions of settlement within the United States, page 31.
Okay.
Let's see where these Germans were being sent in the 1830s. You know the American Removal Act was in 1830. So you're moving Americans west of the Mississippi. Where were they sending these Germans? And I'm gonna dig in and put together some photos out of the government archives, so we can get our mind.
Regions of settlement within the United States. All right.
What's it say? The Germans of colonial what?
Georgia,
Ooh.
1733 to 1783.
Okay, and we got Baltimore. Okay, so let's aim to include all German-speaking inhabitants of Georgia during the colonial period. Okay, let's see. So we can see right here that between 1860, so this is after the Civil War, but the Third Seminole War never ends. But right after the Civil War, we can see that Germans were populating the Ohio area, the Kentucky area. See where it says that? Let's see if we can get that closer to 1830. Let's see if we can get German ships passenger list, 1846 to 1856. Any of those on the passenger list settled in Michigan.
We saw that they were even removing a lot of Americans from that Ohio, Great Lakes area as well. So you see who they're replacing with around that time as well, Germans as well.
Right. The Middle West, Germans were going to Minnesota. So I was looking for photos.
Yeah, let me see if we could get some.
Yeah, just want to get some photos, but there's some literature. Image of Irish American immigrants featured. Oh, here we go. Click on that next link. Let's see what we got.
I want to show images of them. Not surprised though. Not surprising. Let's see if we go back. See, I don't got no link. Is scholarly field? No, there's something else. Go back real quick.
And I know we're trying to do a quick search within like 5 minutes, but all this information is here because they can't hide it. They can't hide it.
See if we could go to photos, prints, drawings.
So this is Louisville.
Kentucky.
So it's not pulling it up. What's gonna have to happen is that keyword last month or the month before would pull up images. So sometimes they can't get rid of the records.
Yeah.
You just gotta play with it and find what keyword pulls up. Because it was matter of fact, take the 1830 off and just put in immigrants from Europe. Boom, it's right at the bottom, immigrants from Europe. Let's see what happens.
Drawing.
Yeah, colony of European immigrants. You want to click on that just to see. That's date 1875.
See if I can blow this up a little bit.
Actually on the boat going into what's the immigration center when they come into New York?
Ellis Island.
Ellis Island.
They need to put that in.
Yeah.
Immigrants. Let me see. European immigrants, Ellis Island, because all of them have to come through.
Yeah. That's true.
You may want to just put the date 1830, 1840, see if we can get.
Get something here.
Get it like that. What if we take off the dates? They're gonna make us work for it. I'm gonna work on this during the week. I'm gonna find it. Okay.
1870 Harbor. Let's see what we got here. Okay. So this 1870. So what is that? About 48 years after Paynes Landing.
Mm.
Don't look like no Americans to me, based off how they describe the Americans.
Today you recognize them as Americans.
Immigrants just arrived awaiting examination. Ellis Island, New York Harbor.
So what we have to understand from an accounting standpoint, they were able to account for everybody coming from Europe into America.
Correct.
They couldn't account for the real Americans. It took decades through the census. That was the first instrument that they were tagging our ancestors with, because they were counting heads.
Correct.
And those that did not go west via a treaty in the Oklahoma, that's when they started putting us in this fictional category of colored Negro. That's when it started. In fact, the denationalization started with the birth certificate. Who wants to volunteer for what next week?
I can do
Um,
the inventor next week.
I'll go ahead and do the Dr. Woodson quote.
Okay. I'll do the legal definitions and the maroon points. So we just need somebody to do the steps. We lost Chief Blackcoat.
Mhm.
What you say you were gonna do, Chief Alligator?
I was gonna do the legal definitions and the maroon points, but we do need somebody to do the 12 steps.
I can do the 12 steps too.
Okay. And I'll work on that. I don't know when we're gonna plug that. Y'all want me to just start working on that and we'll plug it in somewhere as we're doing this great migration. I guess you can call it a great migration, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
I'll start putting a little, just 30 minutes a day or something like that to start pulling up those federal archives of who was really on the transatlantic.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Amazing how mentally we never want to admit that they were part of the transatlantic slave trade.
Mm-hmm.
Slave is not an American word. Now we can get into the etymology of it, but the reality is that comes from Slav. That's the Slavic people. Slave trade is the Slav trade. But question for y'all as we close: why don't we want to accept that they were on the ships? They're not from America. Why do we push back like that? Or we mentally just block out that millions
We
of
just mentally block out.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't think it doesn't go with the narrative that's been taught, that we've learned, and that's what's been pretty much beat into our heads for so long as a collective.
Right.
It doesn't go with the narrative. So if they aren't the Americans, they call the Native Americans Indians, then who are the Americans? Right. Or they call the Native Americans that went west of the Mississippi, Indians, then who are the true Americans? And pretty much that's what we debunking.
We kind of know because they admit to be the Pilgrim.
Correct.
Come on, y'all. Correct. So if they admit to be the Pilgrim, coming from on the Mayflower and those boats, then how are you lying and just twisting it and now becoming the American? Are you the Pilgrim or are you the American? You can't be the American because your Thanksgiving holiday was a massacre of Americans. Y'all help me out.
Yeah. They try to just say that this was unoccupied land, even though that they mentioned they've had this relationship with the people who were here. But again, they continue to call them Indians. So you're beating them. Okay, Indian, not American.
Right.
Even on your backdrop, you're showing nation of Americans.
Correct.
The Delaware, the Chickasaw, the Cherokee.
All 1700s. This is what we occupied. See if I can move out of here.
Yeah. So we're looking right there. These are American nations. And they're all to the east of Mississippi River.
Because that's who we were doing trade with, people in the Atlantic. That's who we were doing trade with, people in the Atlantic.
So we'll do it again next week. Y'all want to say anything in closing? Great meeting. I think we did a lot of building. We did 2 articles, but we did a lot of building on it. So
we gonna get at it. We gonna show next week how or who was actually being put into these areas in which we were being moved from, our people were being moved from, and why there was such conflict for those who didn't move west of the Mississippi. So yeah.
All right. I look forward to next week, guys. Have a good week.
All right.